Energy follows law. The etymology of law is something that has been layered or fixed. And more of the common understanding of law, are such as rules, regulations, right? Laws, per se, are means of a collective of coming into agreement in order to keep something of structure and of order. More of a cosmic or a mystic perspective of law are sigils. Sigils are more of an unfixed set of laws that are not just understood, but manipulated, because energy attracts consciousness, because energy is consciousness. We are form consciousness as beings. So just like the yin and yang, there's yang and yin and there's yin and yang. Energy loves to attract into form, and form loves to shed or to transmute or to transition or transform into energy. The fear of humanity of dying and shedding into an afterlife, well, that was fixation. That's where sigils and law took effect in order to, as an attempt to control the mass. So if you master sigils in the way that you can understand it, then you can master the natural recourse or the natural sense of working with energy, not simply to manipulate it, but to create symphony, harmonics. To dance with your form allows for consciousness to amplify in frequency with love simply within your dance. In my perspective, the difference between a sigil and letters of the alphabet is that letters of the alphabet, although they're governed by law because T is T, or T, right? The letter T is T. That's basically a rule or regulation, sort of like a law. Everybody agrees to that. But the difference between letters and language that was taught to us here and sigils is the soul. Is that language was created in a sense to keep one separated between their heart and their sacral and root chakra, and to use and follow heart to follow an agenda, such as your passions, right? Such as going to a college or university, such as being all that you can be in the Air Force, in anything that you in the military, workforce, right? Marriage, everything. Put your heart out there. I used to say that too. Wear your heart on your sleeve. I wear my heart on my sleeve, right? And your heart fits best in its thoracic cavity. Keep your heart where it's at, because that's where your heart functions best, when she is in alignment within your musicality, your instrumental embodiment, so that once you master and reconnect your heart chakra by bringing your heart back home. It's because the cause and effect is that, yes, I think that by nature, a beautiful human soul is all they want to do is give out and give out and give out, right? And then you come home and you feel depleted. Or you come home with a set of bills that never cease to end. So you come home always feeling like, maybe I'm getting richer in the bank, or maybe I'm getting richer with friends out there. I feel wealthy that way, but there's always something that seems to be missing. Your time. Your time. For you to be able to get that, you must dedicate your time to the outside world. So you need to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week to get what you're going to get, what you're going to get. And you have your own business. Come on now. I had my own business. You work for yourself. You're probably going to put in 60, 70, 80 hours a week in the beginning. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's so good. That's so good. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying you have a plan of action to work with that so that you can attempt to minimize that time. But that wasn't the topic of what I'm saying. So going back to the beginning. Once you start to reintegrate the concept of law, sigils, agreements, you have the capacity, you have the ability to re-script, to re-encode something that's from a positive effect to a neutral effect to a negative effect. Building, right? Harmonizing, neutralizing, or deconstructing. That's all the process of how your body works for you to live as a person. And as a carpenter, as a layman, right? And me as an acupuncturist, once you understand how energy works, once you master the art, or at least attempt to master the art of knowing how people injure themselves, whether it's emotionally or injure others, whether it's accidentally or not, then as an acupuncturist, that you understand how a healthy river that's flowing can often get stagnated, so that you can, in theory, right, attempt to rebalancing that harmony. So sometimes you have to deconstruct even further, because if your blood has stasis somewhere and you're in pain and you have blood stasis, meaning you have stagnation in your blood, in theory, think about it like this. Do you tonify that, or you disperse and dredge to release and open up stagnation to allow the free flow of the rivers of your blood flow and your lymphatic flow, right? Or your natural healing process between the neuroplasticity in your brain and that site of injury, right? The conversation network, because if there's also injury in the fascia, on the fascial level or in the nervous system level, as far as physical stagnation is concerned, right? Then there's stagnation. So in this case, using the same theory as I just noted, you want to work with deconstructing, right? Breaking up stasis. If you're an herbalist, then you work with herbs that are working with breaking up stasis, right? And then you restore harmony. And that's how you work with the chess, or the synergistic understanding and working theory with herbal medicine. If you're an acupuncturist, it's a very similar theory. And you work with needles and intent as far as working with the 5-element theory, Shan Han Lun, 6 stages theory, Bagua theory. There's many theories in Chinese medicine, or yin yang theory, and using those theories to try to bring back harmony once again. Again, with words and sigils. Once you develop the ability or the know-how, how someone or something can actually stagnate you in life, whether it's in the spiritual realm, I would say in the astral realm, as an example, or in the physical realm. There are frequencies that have been and continue to stagnate your mental state, your psychological state, and probably most importantly, your emotional state, because most people right now are still working with their lower density mind, their libido, their sexual drive, their emotional state. They lead by emotions versus allowing the emotions to dance with them and to work with them. Because once you become, once again, the composer of the very music that you're dancing to, and the one who actually scripts your own music that you dance to, where you take complete authorship, once again, then you have the capacity to open up and create your own sigils. I'm going to give you an example. And when I say create your own sigils, it means to create your own harmonics so that you can lay your inner law into this new, kind of like they say new earth now, into the new way of how you've always known within your nervous system, within your bones, within your psyche. I don't mean ethics and morality. Now, obviously, I'm speaking to a certain collective here. So this is either going to go over the head of most people, or it's going to really make logical, rational thinking mental people have to ask so many more questions and get to the bottom of factualizing things, requiring more of words to be in disconnect with sigils. This is what the point I'm trying to get to. Words without sigils create more of a left-minded, sick, patriotic way of creating. And this is how laws and politics and religion has been created. To omit your ability to create and to make sure you revere and honor the other men, mostly men, because they've eliminated women in scripture, to honor the script, the laws that govern from their thinking minds, as they claim that they received it straight from source within. And then you follow the governing belief that because it can be proved within the collective consensus from many cultures and many beliefs and many scriptures that indeed everybody can collectively agree that the people within that square, that box called a book, right? Because scripture wasn't originally in books that way. Weren't they scrolls? You think that was by accident to save value on paper? You think that was modernization? No, those were hidden sigils, symbolic pictures, knowing that as children you see with what makes you feel good. I mean, if I can somehow 3D print frozen ice cream into a square, it's not the same thing as my ice cream looking like that. At least I'm speaking for myself. try this little exercise. I'm going to attempt to demonstrate how you can take a new approach and seeing how your words, let's say in English, because we're speaking in English, I'd have a hard time doing it in Spanish because I'm not 100% a Spanish speaker. I'm about 80 or 90%. I'm working on it, even though I'm Boricua. Word, bruh. If you know, you know. All right, seriously, let's get back. But seriously, I'm working on my Spanish. But in English, because I speak English, 95%. That 5% is a little bit like economics. Growing up in Patterson, New Jersey, if you don't know. So in Chinese Qigong, and in the medical arts, and also in the Chinese Kung Fu arts, such as Hongga, Xingyi, and in the Shaolin fighting arts, right? We use the harmonics of sounds. We bring back the emotional, energetic. When I say energetic, I mean also your chi. We use actually the movement because sigils don't have to be stiff, and that's what we were taught. So if you see the letter T, it's just that, yes? Right, and that's true, but there's many other truths, right? You could take a circle, you can actually turn the circle and make it look like a spear, and the spear and the circle will look appear the same depending which the level of density that you want to perceive it, right? If it's in a 2D paper, yeah, if you're a good artist and you start working with gradients and shading, right, then you can make a 2D circle appear to be like a spear. Well, same thing, everything is perspective, so please, this is perspective. I'm gonna call them sigil. Take the sigil SH. You take a room full of kids, and you try this. Take a room full of kids. Let's say you're a kindergarten teacher, preschool teacher, and maybe precondition them a little bit so that when they're running amok, you go to them and you say, you have them practice the sound of running water, like river flowing, and you have them with music, right? You have them sing and to chant alongside, right? With no meaning at all. Their body's naturally going to gravitate towards, right? Because again, energy follows law, and law, I'm trying to, as an attempt to create a comparison between laws being not immovable, but the ability to regenerate and manifest down here is seeing sigils and words, and the words that come out of your mouth in a different perspective, in a different level of density. And again, densities measured are dimensions. So you have this room full of kids, right? You know, you teach them to go and feel this for yourself. Be sincere to yourself so you can actually like cross-examine and feel for yourself where the energy's laying, right? Because I'm gonna take this another step further. I'm gonna take this another step further and see if you can tap into your own body, your own inner body's engineering, and your own inner bells and whistles, and the hollowing of the organs, and the momentum, and the hollowing of the space inside your thoracic cavity and your other spaces in your body, such as your cranium and even your pelvic bone, creates the shift within the chambers when you emit sound. It's not just through your voice, but it's also your embodiment, it's also your organs. So each organ naturally emit a frequency that can be heard through sound. And humans that tapped in have the ability to recreate the sound, to tap into the organ of disharmony per se, to bring back balance, homeostasis to the organ, right? SH is your kidneys and your adrenal glands as far as over adrenal stimulation, right? You're overstimulated, your vagus nerve is overstimulated, you're in fight or flight response, or you're just overexcited, such as little kids. Overexcitation. So feel it for yourself. If I go, a group of kids right now, you imagine a group of kids with me going, that's the sound of your kidneys. And kidneys energetically, from a Chinese medical perspective, they rise, like almost like a waterfall. They rise, and right? So they're actually going two directions at the same time. There's a rising effect, and anything that naturally rises wants to come back down home. So, and if you pay attention, you can start to imagine at first, and then organically feel something vibration or vibratory happening around your kidneys or between the spine, around that area between the kidneys, which they call it the gate of the Ming Meng. The Ming Meng, which is a gateway to your vitality. So you're activating that portal or that gate, which is having a yin and yang connection to your lower dantian, which I would say is your first eye before you work with your third eye. And the one that balances the first and the third eye is your heart, right? Like twins, 2, 1, 1. Numeracy. So the heart is bringing what's in your mind, anchoring into the earth. But if the earth is not stable, if your earth is not stable, if you're in constant fight or flight mode, if you're angry, if you're anal retentive, right? You're retaining your anal energy. You've met some people like that where and they're angry and their face gets red back in the day. That's anal retention. That's your earth is actually raising up a false sense of energy up to your head. So I'm trying to show you through the eyes or the lens of an acupuncturist how energy works. So as an acupuncturist, this is how I'm going to do. You can use the term, or you can actually start sounding off in your cubicle if you're in the office and you see your angry ass coworker. and do it even if they don't hear it. Start to create that sound for yourself. See if you can feel it for yourself and observe without attempting to change anything, to see what changes in your outskirts so that you can see for yourself how sound, how sigils, and understanding the law that you're creating, the intention that, okay, so I'm creating a sigil, or I'm bringing life to the SH as a sigil for the moment. I'm medicating this sigil, and the sigil is coming encoded. I'm encoding this sigil, SH, the sound, SH, to my kidneys, and bringing back excitation back into, not into my heart. You don't want that heart to start feeling into my lower dantian. I love you, heart. We don't need to carry that burden, dude. We don't need to carry that burden. So that's when you anchor. Now, how do you manipulate the term SH, or the sigil? I'm going to say SH, right? So again, laws can be manipulated to the mind of a mystic. A mystic is simply, for me, someone who is conscious of how they are manipulating energy. It takes energy for you to, from day one, it takes energy for you to manipulate, just to raise your hand, to even be able to focus on scratching your nose, right? To take it to a deeper level of inner understanding from a Western perspective, an Eastern, a Vedic, and other perspectives. Then you're taking all of that to your deeper level of understanding. And a mystic is one that's working within that frequency. Not about right or wrong, not about governing laws, but about creating, harmonizing, or dismantling sigils and energy, because energy cannot be contained for too long. So, how do you manipulate and change the instruction as the example as I created before? Go to your partner and go, shh. Shh. It's like, shut the fuck up. You're gonna get a reaction, because that's how powerful is. Stop it. Right? And Kung Fu. So you can use the kidney chi to go like a snake. See, the intention changes. My entire psyche changes, because the saliva came out because I was about to go into war. War with myself. So you see how, as a mystic, you start working with the Qigong value and the martial value. I can take this so many places. As a teacher, class, all right, now let's take this and now bring it and slow down, right? That immediate stoppage to you can educate. And then you can educate your classroom, your students, yourself. No separation. To understand the value of how the kidneys, adrenal glands, and your entire nervous system energetically, whether you're in stasis or you're in yang excess, yang like yin and yang, that means like overexcitation, and you can actually prescribe yourself, right, through a different perspective, sigils, law, and your voice and command. Because again, the argument that I'm making is that if you add again the soul to when you speak, how you speak, or then words are no longer words. Your words become your script. The last part for those who choose to stick around, because my videos tend to be a little bit on the lengthy side. See if you could feel for yourself these two sounds. And I'm using these sounds from Yin Bagua 6 healing sounds perspective, right? And from my experiences and training in it, right? A-H-H-H and H-A-A, ah, and right? Without getting logical, see if you could feel when you say, or when you hear me say, ah, right? So, and then compare it to Hawww. And tell me which organs are vibrating or associated to those sounds. Have fun with this. The other one is I'm going to give you a second, and then I'm going to give you the answer and a bit of a hint. Multiple choice. It's one or the other. But I'm giving you a second right now, so you could think of any organ you want to at first in the beginning. One is associated with the lungs, and the other one is associated with the heart. Which one is it? All right, I'm not going to say it out loud. I'm going to post it down there. Then you're going to see it. I'll simplify it. It'll be the first line or the second line. Stay conscious.